time to take a TO with coaches Turner and O'Neill. Produced by Kurtis Cross and engineered by DJ Chrissy. Be sure to listen now at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Buzzsprout, or Google Podcasts. Download the app and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode of Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill.
It's time to take a TO with coaches Steve Turner and Casey O'Neill. Your new favorite podcast features conversation from the world of high school, college, and pro sports, along with other riveting content. Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Turner O'Neill Podcast, on Twitter at Turn On Podcast, or visit www.turnerando'neill.com. Thanks to our partners, Ray Cruz at MCF Mortgage, the Tewaaraton Team, Dynamic DJ Entertainment, Healthy Baller, and Insurance Alliance Group LLC. Our sponsors, O'Neill Development LLC, Next Level Lacrosse, Peace Players International, and A Squared Home and Office Solutions. Our donors, Justin O'Neill, Winsight Media, and Redwood Investments. Take a TO with Coach Turner and O'Neill is produced by Kurtis Cross and engineered by DJ Chrissy. Now, we welcome you to today's episode as we take a TO with coaches Turner and O'Neill. Here's your host, Kurtis Cross.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to week 6 of Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill. I am Kurtis Cross, your host, and with me, as always, is Coach Steve Turner and Casey O'Neill. We'd like to thank our partners, Dynamic DJ Entertainment, Healthy Baller, the Tewaaraton Team, Ray Cruz and MCF Mortgage, Insurance Alliance Group LLC. We've got a heck of a show today, and I think it's fair to say that each of us are completely excited for our two guests. But before we get to the heart of today's episode, I'd like to thank DJ Chrissy, our engineer, and Paula, who spends time each week gathering info about the guests and, quite frankly, doing a lot of behind-the-scenes work to make sure that the podcast comes together. Gentlemen, how are we doing this week?
Feeling great. Feeling really great. I'm excited to put a spotlight on the sport of lacrosse after the weekend of the PLL championship being on NBC. The guests that are coming up on this episode, which are, I think, two of the more popular players in the sport. For you, Kurtis, to be learning about the sport. For Coach Turner, who's a father of a lacrosse player and a basketball coach and loves the sport. Let's get it on.
Oh, we're excited. I know I am.
I'm definitely excited about the guests we got coming on. Certainly about what's going on in the game of lacrosse. I tell everybody, I think people will be surprised by me being the basketball coach. I watch literally more college lacrosse than I watch NBA basketball.
Wow.
Real quick, Coach Turner joined us, and we might have talked about this on a podcast before, but you joined us on a big road trip probably 3 or 4 years ago, 2016, when we went up and we played Haverford in a snow game. Coach T was on the sideline, loves the sport. We love talking about different plays that relate to lacrosse and basketball. Real quick, I got to give a shout out to the PLL and especially the MVP of yesterday's championship, a young man named Zed Williams, who played at the University of Virginia. But he's from the Seneca Nation. He grew up in the Cataragus Reservation, which is just south of Buffalo. But if folks go back and look at the PLL social media, you'll see how cool it is that young man was holding his lacrosse stick, receiving the MVP award, and it just shows you what this sport's about. They call it the creator's game. Him being a native himself, I think people would really, really learn a lot if they looked into that and to see why it was so special to that young man.
Well, you got me excited for this week. And when I found out about the guests we're going to have, I did my research, and I quickly realized that we're not just talking your regular, everyday, average lacrosse players. We're talking about some guys who've broken some barriers and who've done some amazing things as far as their All-American status, the Tewaaraton Award. I did not know how to say that 48 hours ago, but you schooled me. You sent me an audio message, so I would know how to say it. But thank you for both of you gentlemen for facilitating getting these guests in. We are excited. Let's move on with the show.
Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill would like to thank our friends of the program: Richard Butts Jr., Jean and Clorinda Carter, Sean Clifton, Paula Cross, Justin O'Neill, Susan and Brendan O'Neill Sr., Amy O'Neill Richard, Damian and Brooke Stevenson, Marcus Taylor, If you'd like to become a friend of the program, go to www.turnerandoneal.com and click Partnerships.
One Headline is brought to you by A2 Home and Office Solutions. A2 is the go-to source for home and office network and audiovisual solutions. They will link technology to your lifestyle seamlessly. Visit homeandofficesolutions.com for more info. All right, our one headline of the week. Draymond Green was fined by the NBA for apparent tampering comments. As many of you will know, the NBA takes very seriously any actions or comments that they deem tampering when it comes to players, their contracts, potential future landing spots, and so forth. When asked about Devin Booker's play during Phoenix's undefeated NBA restart, Green praised Booker and said, "It's not good for him. It's not good for his career. They got to get Book out of Phoenix. I need my man to go somewhere where he can play great basketball all the time and win because he's that type of player." Your thoughts on the NBA fining him for tampering?
First of all, as soon as he said it, I knew the NBA had their donation plate sitting out,
right,
ready to collect that fine. I love Draymond. I love the work that he does on the court, but sometimes he's gotta keep his mouth shut.
All right.
Look, the NBA and all sports need characters like Draymond. They just need it. You know, look, I don't know what they're going to do with fines or this or that, but
he got 50,
every sport...
they got 50 good ones from him.
Yeah,
come on. Every sport has those athletes that aren't afraid to say what they're feeling, and so be it.
Not afraid to open up their checkbook when they have to either, huh?
I'd like to have that money.
All right, and that is one headline.
Join the podcast.
The starting five.
The starting five is brought to you by...
You become the star right here with the DJ Chrissy Karaoke Show. Choose your song and step to the mic. Dynamic DJ Entertainment, creating a non-stop party, one dance floor at a time. The Mid-Atlantic Professional DJ Association.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for the starting five. 5 questions go to each coach. They get 30 seconds each to answer these questions. They've never seen the questions before. Chrissy has the bell. Let me hear that bell, Chrissy. Ooh. And you know the bell's coming for you.
Some of us get 20 to 25 seconds.
I mean, if you want to bellyache about it, I guess so. Jeez. All right. 5 questions each, 30 seconds each. We're going to start. We have a guest in the studio. His name is Cole, and he said Coach Turner must go first. So question number 1, Coach Turner, in your life, and I know the answer to this, in your life, who's the MVP?
Ooh, it's a few of them, but number 1 is my wife. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
All right.
Lee is the MVP, but standing and strong, 1B, it's my mom.
Always. All right, Coach O'Neill.
I agree with Steve. It's my wife. 100% keeps us afloat, keeps us moving. I'd say most improved are my children, Cole, Chloe, and Claire. But my parents as well are right up there in that third place, third place.
So how many trophies do you have? You get one MVP.
We got a bunch up there. We got them all across the
Yeah,
map.
long mantle. Okay, all of them up
It
there.
takes a village. It takes a village.
It does take a village.
And I need a big one.
Coach O'Neill, the next question is coming to you. It's a 2-part question. Is it a Philly cheesesteak or a steak and cheese, and how do you dress it? Steak
and cheese, for sure. Don't go to Philly that often. When I do, enjoy it. But I go with whiz. And if I can get some onions in there, done.
All right.
Ketchup.
Coach Turner, is it Philly cheesesteak or steak and cheese, and how do you dress your whatever you call it?
At home, it's a steak and cheese.
Right.
In Philly, it's a Philly cheesesteak. Don't walk up to the counter and say anything different.
Do not do that.
But I'm like Casey, whiz with.
Okay.
Whiz with onion.
All right. I go mayonnaise, lettuce, tomato, and a little bit of onion.
No, I'll mix it up a little bit.
Don't put that order in when you go up to Philly.
If you go to Philly and answer,
I'm going to take it how I get it.
With or without, and that's with the whiz.
With or without. Okay. All right. Number 3, we're coming right back to Coach Turner, I think. You're starting an MLB franchise. Are we starting with Nolan Ryan, Mariano Rivera, or Hank Aaron? And don't ask me, are we playing today? Are we playing 30? Whatever era you want, who are you picking up?
I'm going with Nolan.
All right.
I'm going with Nolan Ryan. I'll go back a little bit to where Casey was with the quarterback question in one of our last podcasts, starting with the quarterback. You got to have a guy that can strike him out,
right?
Pitch a long distance. I'm going with Nolan.
And this is before we had middle relievers and all that. I mean, he would go 7, 8, maybe 9 if he had to.
Yes.
That's a great answer. And then I was starting to think that I was going to go with Hank Aaron just because he's an everyday player in that bat in the field. But to win games and to win them in October, you need someone to close them out. And Mariano's, nobody better, man.
There's no better closer.
The cutter coming down. So I'm going to go with Mariano.
I'm not a Yankees fan, but you gotta.
Neither am I.
You gotta. Mariano was nasty. All right, we're coming your way, sir. Favorite music genre?
Favorite? Oh wow! Can I look to my son over here in the room to ask that question?
He knows you sing in the shower. I know he knows you sing in the shower.
If I say what I'm going to say, you just nod your head. 80s? No? You don't think it's 80s? I think it's 80s. I'm going to go 80s. 80s are like 90s rock, 90s rap.
He always picks more than one answer. Like it's a one answer question.
I haven't been buzzed yet today, so I'm off to a good start. I'm going to stick with 80s. I loved 80s music.
You sure?
Wrong. Yeah.
Chrissy, he spoke past the 30 seconds. I saw it right there on the clock. All right, Coach Turner, favorite music genre?
I mean, you guys already know the answer to this. I mean, I don't even know why you're asking
I've
this
known
question.
you for years.
It's definitely the 80s.
Definitely. We talked music before the podcast, didn't we?
It's definitely the 80s.
That's an easy one. That's why she doesn't buzz him, because he has simple, concise answers.
But when I go back to the 80s, you mentioned how much you love U2, which I love.
Yes.
But U2 in the 80s was outstanding. I mean, they got better and better. She's going to buzz. Hit it. Go.
Number 5, we're coming your way, Coach Turner. Game on the line, down by 2. Are you going for 2 or 3? And who takes the shot? NBA.
Oh, I thought you were going to let me pick one of my own guys.
No.
Down 2, I'm going for 3, and I'm giving the ball to Larry Legend.
Larry Legend. All right.
He took my answer.
All right.
You got to go MJ. Got to go MJ, no matter what. Whatever
but what
situation.
are you going for? Are you going for the tie or the win?
He's still he's going to shoot the 3. He can do whatever he wants. He's going to shoot the 3.
He didn't shoot a 3 at a high
Just give him the
clip, though,
ball.
did he?
Just give him the ball.
And get out the way.
He didn't, but I still look back to that Portland Trailblazers series when he was just on fire, and that's MJ, man. He's the best.
Here's the question: I can't say his name right now. James Harden, is he our best scorer right now in the NBA? I think so.
KD's not playing right now.
All right, so I said right now.
Today. Well, when you say right now, that could mean in this
season or in this era.
Or in this era. If you're talking in the era, it's KD. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
All right.
Right now in this season, James Harden.
James Harden. What you got on that?
I don't see why you don't go with LeBron. I mean,
best scorer?
Still, I mean, he can just do everything. I like versatile guys. I think LeBron.
I mean, he's dropping like 24 and a half, 25 and a half a game, but James Harden is dropping 35, 40 on a regular. I'm not even a big James Harden fan. He's just a hell of a scorer.
Yeah, I'll stick with LeBron.
All right, he sticks with LeBron. And ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up our starting 5. The starting 5.
Healthy Baller. Become your own success story. At Healthy Baller, our team of specialists is committed to providing injury recovery and strength and conditioning training tailored to individual needs. Call 844-622-5537 or visit healthyballer.com.
Redwood Investments. We are a private investment firm providing growth capital for acquisitions, roll-ups, and management-led buyouts. Visit redwoodinvestments.com or call 202-333-1395.
This segment is brought to you by O'Neill Development. O'Neill Development specializes in custom residential work, providing extensive pre-construction and construction services. O'Neill Development, building, remodeling, and development since 1975. Visit www.o'neilldev.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have our first caller of the podcast. Anyone who knows or follows lacrosse will know the name Tom Schreiber. He is Princeton's all-time leading scorer from the midfield position with 200 points. He was a 4-time USILA All-American and spent 3 seasons on the first team. He won the McLaughlin Award as the nation's most outstanding midfielder during his junior and senior seasons. In his professional career, he was the first overall selection in the 2014 MLL draft and was named League MVP in the 2016 and 2017 seasons, en route to 2 championship runs. In 2016, he was named Rookie of the Year in the National Lacrosse League, posting 94 points in his first season and again in 2019. He currently plays in the Premier Lacrosse League with the Archers Lacrosse Club. In his professional career, he has scored more than 200 goals, and we welcome him to Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tom Schreiber.
Tom, thanks for joining us today. We are pleased to welcome you to the show. You've been a busy guy, so thanks for taking a TO with us today. I just want you to know your bio and your accolades take up so much space. It's 2 pages on my iPad. How you doing, fella?
I'm good. Slightly embarrassing to hear the old bio, but I appreciate it and appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you for being here. I want to jump right into the questions. Now, the PLL made the decision and moved the championship series to Utah, keeping the players safe, preserving a competitive format, and keeping the sport in front of a national audience where, that was clearly the goal. What was your preparation like?
Well, it was a bit different from a normal season, just knowing what the physical and frankly the mental demands would be in playing in this format versus your typical one game per week format. So a lot more running, and then really just acknowledging the need to have quick turnaround. Whether you're winning a game or losing a game, being prepared for that and needing to be able to kind of roll with whatever punches are presented. So, it was a ton of fun. I wish we had gone a little further. So we ended up losing in the semifinals, but overall, pretty incredible experience to be able to participate in a professional sports league, amid a worldwide pandemic. So thankful for the experience and, had a blast.
Tom, Casey O'Neill here. Enjoyed watching you over that series. Become a huge fan, actually. Am an Archers Lacrosse Club fan now. I got to get some of the gear and go out there and buy some. But listen, I'm going to change things up a little bit and go back to something. When you read your bio, and a great player like yourself, and we're going to talk to Kyle Harrison later as well, in his bio, multi-sport athletes always come up. And knowing you were a quarterback, I think you were an option quarterback, and knowing that you played basketball, point guard, and I'm with Coach Turner, who's our basketball coach over here. Can you talk a little bit about how those playing multiple sports kind of led you to, being your best at lacrosse?
Yeah, for sure. So lacrosse was always my first love. I come from a lacrosse family, and there's always something I was super passionate about, but I played all sports as a kid and loved really all of them. But as I got older, focused on football and lacrosse almost exclusively, and then a little basketball. But to your point, being an option quarterback in particular, you're just have to make so many decisions, whether that's pre-snap, post-snap, reading the tackle, reading the end, and needing to do that quickly. And then on the basketball court, doing, kind of having a similar decision-making process, as a ball handler, as a point guard, lends itself really nicely to a feeder in lacrosse. So really just being able to process defenses, make decisions quickly and moving quickly, while being covered by defense, I think are all skills that, I picked up playing football, playing basketball, and translated them over to playing lacrosse.
Tom, Steve Turner here. Hope you're well. And again, I want to say thank you for taking your time to be with us today. I've had a chance as a basketball coach in the last year to work with USA Basketball, and looking over your resume, seeing that you won a gold medal with Team USA. Talk to us about that experience and how you felt winning for your country.
it was incredible. Just the opportunity to represent the country doing, my favorite activity in the world was pretty cool. And then, the opportunity to play for Coach Stanowski and play with, frankly, all 22 of my teammates was amazing. I think that's one of those experiences that couldn't have ended better for me personally. It was literally out of a dream, having the game-winning goal as time expires and winning the gold medal halfway across the world is, what you would think is as good as it gets. But what I kind of look back on that experience is the entire process over the product. Again, it couldn't have been a better end product for me with a gold medal and, scoring the goal or whatever. But what I think about with that team is just, the culture that we built, the time that we spent together leading up. So it's a 3-year process to pick that team, and then taking the flight over to Israel, living together for 3 weeks, training together, preparing for each game, eating all of our meals. And those experiences, I think, are something that I'll always remember. So it was amazing. It was an honor and a privilege to be able to have USA on my chest, and just really thankful for the entire experience and the relationships I made along the way.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that a lot. So see if I can take you to a place with me. Coach O'Neill texted me the other night. I'm a basketball guy. This is Kurtis. I don't watch a lot of lacrosse. He texted me the other night and lets me know that the semifinals of the PLL are on. I tune in. I want to get to know the sport better. I've seen highlights. I've seen some live lacrosse on the college and prep school level, but I was fascinated by what I saw on NBC, the skill level, the product on the field. Those are my reasons. But tell me, what do you feel drives new fans to the sport? It's on NBC now. I mean, your league is doing its job. What do you feel is driving new fans to the sport?
Well, I think that exposure and that partnership with NBC is really important, and getting as many eyeballs on it as possible. I think, in my opinion, lacrosse combines a lot of the best aspects of other sports. The quickness, the physicality, and then the skill it takes to play at a high level, both offensively and defensively. And I think what NBC does is give a really great look at that. Like everything from camera angles to the broadcast to Ryan Boyle and Paul Burmeister really, explaining what's happening and explaining the intricacies of the game, particularly on the offensive end, to see how players are breaking things down and the skill needed to do it, and to see how physical and how fast things are happening, and players having the ability to process it at a really high level, I think is something that's really exciting. So to break it down, I would just say a combination of the physicality, the speed, and the skills needed to play, and combined with exposure. And I think, this was a nice step for the PLL and lacrosse as a whole. And my hope is that, we can continue to build on this momentum and, get this game that, I love and Coach O'Neill loves in front of as many people as possible.
Well, you got a new fan in me. I know that. But I think, Casey, you have a question.
Yeah, absolutely. So walk us through a little bit the off season here. And I guess, look, you guys are right there in those semis. And, man, it was fun to watch kind of that young rookie, Grant Ament, kind of just dive right into everything. I mean, a bunch of rookies that are coming in. But what do the Archers kind of need to do to take that step next year? I mean, I know you guys are right there. And what does the offseason kind of look like for you?
Yeah, it's I think it's one of those things where it's still really recent, and I feel we had every piece we needed. I don't think in terms of adjustments, I don't think we need to bring in any new personnel. I feel great about everybody we have. I think if you look at that semifinal game, we just didn't put together, what you'd normally call a full 60 minutes. In the PLL, it's 48 minutes. So, we came out a little slow. And when you're playing a great team like we were playing that had a ton of momentum in the chaos, we just fell too far behind. I think we had a good second half and we just didn't do enough to win that game. So, in terms of things we need to address, it's putting together a full 48 minutes. But in terms of personnel, I think, with the addition of Grant Ament and some of the players that we brought in here, I think we have, everything that we need to compete at the highest level. So it's about continuing to kind of build and put together a full effort. And, I know we were disappointed in not putting together that full 58 minutes, but I do think that, we leave that tournament, in a better place than we started and looking at this as a process and it stings to not get it done this year, but I think if you ask every guy on our team, I think they'd be pretty excited for the future.
Absolutely.
Tom, Steve Turner here. There's a big debate on the East Coast, especially on the East Coast. Which area, in your opinion, is the biggest hotbed? Baltimore or Long Island?
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
I mean, this one's a layup for me. It's Long Island. It always will be.
Notice we didn't say Washington, D.C.
I have a lot of respect for Baltimore. I have a lot of respect for Washington, D.C. I'll throw upstate New York and Ontario in there as the hotbed. I'll give Denver some love as well. It's at the end of the day, my hope is that lacrosse spreads, throughout the U.S., throughout North America, throughout the world. But I always hope that Long Island is at the epicenter of it. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if that'll. I want to grow the game as much as possible, but I want my boys on Long Island to always be a top. That one's an easy. Long Island.
Great stuff. Great stuff. I have a son who plays the game myself, and I really have become a big fan of it, and certainly a fan of yours and watching what you've been able to do. In my opinion, you've become arguably the best midfielder in the game. Tell me and talk to the young men who are listening. Who are the guys you looked up to when you were making the run into becoming who you've become as a player today?
But first off, I really appreciate that. I'm a pretty unique case because I grew up on Long Island. I grew up in a lacrosse family. I grew up around professional lacrosse, around high-level college lacrosse, and I had a ton of role models, a ton of idols. Really right, down the road on Long Island, going to Hofstra, going to Nassau Coliseum, watching pro players, watching top collegiate players. I think it's unique for me right now because I work with two of these guys, but Paul Rabel and Kyle Harrison were two guys that, did a lot for me without even realizing it, just trying to emulate their games. But I think those two would stick out, but something my dad always instilled in me, and this goes back to, one of our earlier questions, regarding other sports, is just, I watched a ton of hoops. I watched a ton of football, and you can take some of the movements, right? A crossover is a foot dodge, right? It's the same thing, right? Like a roll dodge is the same as, a guy doing a spin move in football or in hoops. And I think I took a lot from other sports and kind of always had, an eye on how that can translate to lacrosse and how it can help my game. And, so to answer your question, I think Paul Rabel and Kyle Harrison are at the top of that list, but, I really drew inspiration from a lot of different sports and a lot of different athletes and, kind of always took that approach, watching a game, whether live or on TV.
Tom, a couple more questions here. And as you may know, we're going to speak with Kyle just a little bit later. But social justice is inspiring generational changes here and across the world. And I know the PLL has worked to increase the voices on this platform. You mentioned Kyle, and that leads right into my question. Kyle is a face in lacrosse that doesn't look like all of the other faces. What have you seen? And he's brought a lot of awareness in communities that don't normally watch lacrosse to that sport. What have you seen in the PLL community and even beyond to push forward the social justice movement that we're all seeing live and, right here in front of us right now?
Yeah, no, I think to start, I think, you hit the nail on the head with identifying Kyle as a leader there. I think he's a very public leader, but the amount of work that he does behind the scenes on a daily basis is something that, I hope one day he gets the credit for. I work very closely with Paul and with Kyle, but, I'd say Kyle is one of my closest friends at this point, and, really couldn't ask for much more from a friend and a mentor. He's somebody that I have, a ton of respect for, and I think, to go back to the social justice aspect of things, I think it starts with Mike and Paul Rabel, from the beginning. When we rewind to the very beginning of the PLL, it was always something that, was a priority. And they identified Kyle as a leader in that regard very early and put him in a position where he could, do the right thing from a social justice standpoint. And now, your point around what's going on in the world, I think Kyle's leadership there has been incredible. And I think he is in a difficult position and is, in many ways, has to be the voice of an entire community. And I think he's just done a fantastic job of doing it. And, has really, talk about somebody who's left the game at a better spot than he found it. And he's still doing a lot of work. I think it's been amazing. And I think, Mike and Paul's leadership, their support and empowering Kyle to take the lead and those sorts of initiatives has been really cool. And to watch Kyle's work really behind the scenes, I think, it's something that's really inspiring and something that, I really appreciate as somebody who wants to see this game grow and wants to see lacrosse be successful. I think that is a huge part of it. And I think Kyle has done really an incredible job of leading the way. And it's something that I'm really thankful for. And it's something that I really respect about Kyle.
Excellent. I think Coach Casey O'Neill has one final question for you.
You know what? You were very gracious to talk to our guys a couple weeks or months ago during this pandemic. It's hard to remember, what month we're in or what's going on. But you said something to me, and it stuck with me because I asked you kind of what motivates you, and you said it's the jersey you're wearing. Because somebody gave you an opportunity, whether it was in high school or college or in the pros. Can you just talk about that a little bit, just that comment? It just struck me, and I think about it almost every day because it gets me fired up.
Yeah, sure. And it is funny. I was trying to remember when that conversation happened. And
right.
It's all just such a blur. But I'm assuming, where that comment came from was the pregame superstition of mine. And it's just to, I take a look at it. It's really a 30-second process. It's really quick, but it's the reason I do it kind of puts me in a nice mindset prior to a game. And that process is looking at the front of the jersey, and in this case, it's for the Archers, and thinking back as to what's our team culture, what are we about, what do we want to stand for. It's pretty unique with PLL. It's only a year and a half old, so I've been there the entire time. I've been at the very first meeting with Coach Bates and the staff and the captains, and when we discussed what we wanted to stand for and what we wanted to be about. So. That's a quick reminder for me. And then, before I put that jersey on, I take a look at the back and, Dad wore number 20, same number as me. And my last name's on the back of the jersey. Kind of just a quick reminder to be grateful for all of those, people in my family that have allowed me to kind of get to this point. And, I think my dad was my coach forever. And I think he's obviously had a huge role in my development as a player. But it's also a quick reminder to, my mom, driving me and my sister around to different practices. My cousin trained me, all of my cousins and stuff who are, watching these PLL games. It's just kind of a quick process that, just puts me in a nice frame of mind and reminds me to be grateful for. And, this game's much more about, honoring those sacrifices and those people who have kind of been in my corner versus, worrying about how I'm going to perform or something like that. So I assume that's where those comments came from, and it's something I've done before every game, probably for the last decade of my life, and it's never failed to kind of get me ready to roll.
That's awesome. That's exactly where it came from, and thank you for answering that.
Tom, we thank you for joining us today. It's a tremendous honor to have one of the sport's best players chatted up with us. Again, I tell you, that resume takes up 2 pages on my iPad. So you've put in some work. Please tell our audience how they can connect with the sport, the league, and even possibly you. Talk to us about these social media platforms and where they can, get more involved with the game of lacrosse.
Yeah, I think it would start, with following along with the PLL. I think it's something that they've done a phenomenal job of keeping fans updated and getting to know players and really publicizing what the league and the sport is all about. So I think you can follow them just at PLL on Instagram. It's a great place to start. And then if there's any interest in following me personally, it's just at Tom_Schreiber26.
Of course they want to follow you, Tom. Come on.
Yeah, so you can find me there, and I would start with PLL, and if you're feeling inclined, you could follow me as well. So Tom_Schreiber26 on Instagram.
Tom, thank you so much for your time. Look, you guys just got finished in Utah. You're a busy guy. You are one of the clear faces of the sport, so we feel fortunate to have you on our podcast. Folks, if you're listening, we're going to put his information up on our website. It might already be there now, but follow the sport, follow this guy. We're going to be talking to Kyle Harrison later. Follow him as well. These are 2 guys who really are leading the way in the sport of lacrosse with the PLL. Tom, thanks for your time, sir.
No, thank you guys. Much appreciated.
We'll talk soon.
Thanks,
Appreciate you, Tom.
Thanks, guys.
That was a heck of an interview, huh? I mean, it's just great to have connections with you guys that can bring in guys like this. So thank you to both of you for pulling some strings to make that happen.
It was a team effort tonight. And just, just seeing, just listening to those guys and how humble they are, when you're reading their bios and you talk about it, and there's just regular guys just like us.
I'm just so impressed with how humble they are. Like,
yeah.
They're just the guy who's sitting with you, having a nice pop at the bar.
Right.
You just strike up a conversation. You sit there for probably an hour or 2 talking about life. And
next thing you know, you're late going home.
Yeah, late going home, but great meeting, great in the meet opportunity with guys like them.
But I will say, when the whistle blows, guys like Tom, boom, that whistle blows, it's on. It is on. See you later. Just getting after it, competing. Really cool. Really cool.
I'm not as in tune with lacrosse as you guys are, but hearing Tom, the connection between different sports that you guys spoke about is clearly there. The terminology, it might be this on the football side or basketball side and this on the lacrosse side, but the footwork might be similar. The overall goal of some of the footwork and the movement is the same. And you've convinced me to play other sports really plays into your lacrosse game.
It definitely does. I mean, I think Casey and I, we steal from each other. We certainly try to learn some things from each other. I've spent time now because Jared plays and different club teams he's played on and watching some of their practices. It's given me opportunity to steal some drills that I can, make relatable to our game of basketball. The footwork is definitely the same. I think it's helped my own child in the game, in both games, being able to play the 2. And as I've said, we've had so many great players down at I Street who've played both sports and have had success on the field and as well as on the court. And I think a lot of it's just because of the transferable.
Yeah, I mean, look, we mentioned football, soccer, and of course basketball. That's just a very, just comparison-wise, very good. But don't forget the wrestlers, the guys that are getting down there and facing off. Don't forget the swimmers. Don't forget the ice hockey is a huge one for us. Tons of ice hockey guys that translates over. So there's just so many different sports that kids can do, and just be young, man. Do as many as you can.
All right, but right now we will go to break.
Dynamic DJ Entertainment. We are the area's leader in DJ entertainment. The DJ Chrissy Karaoke Show, movie nights, and giant games. The party begins now. Book your next event at www.mapdja.com or call 301-942-4500.
Take advantage of historically low mortgage rates for your first, next, or refinanced mortgage. Ray believes that home mortgages should be about relationships. Call Ray Cruz at 301-761-2278 or apply online at raypcruz.com. Next Level Lacrosse, Next Level Lacrosse is dedicated to providing a terrific lacrosse experience that is intensely focused on player development and character formation. You'll find us at www.nextlevelspartans.com.
Our next caller is a household name to lacrosse enthusiasts. A 3-time All-American at Johns Hopkins University, the McLaughlin Award winner in 2004 and 2005. He also won the Tewaaraton Award as a National Player of the Year in 2005. He's also in the Johns Hopkins University Athletics Hall of Fame, and in his senior year, he led Hopkins to the perfect season en route to capturing the 2005 NCAA Division I Lacrosse Championship. He has played 15 seasons professionally and is currently a midfielder for the Redwoods Lacrosse Club of the PLL, and recently announced he is returning for the 2021 season. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Kyle Harrison.
Kyle, thanks for taking the TO with Turner and O'Neill today. Your resume, of course, speaks for itself. We're delighted to have you on the show, so welcome. How are you doing, fella?
I'm doing great. Thank you all for having me.
Of course,
Looking
of
forward
course.
to it.
Yes. Thanks for being here. I'd like to speak to your historic impact on the game of lacrosse. And honestly, it's not just your impact, but your family, starting with your father. Can you tell our listeners what that journey has been like?
Yeah, I've been lucky. And I think the older I've gotten, the more, perspective I've gained, which is pretty normal. But just an understanding my father and kind of our family history in the sport. For those who don't know, my dad is from Baltimore, Maryland. He went to Forest Park High School, went up to Morgan, and his coach and teammates were at the time the first historically black college to start a team. Some success. They wrote a book chronicling just that whole process. His coach, Chip Silverman, and my father, Dr. Miles Harrison, called 10 Bears. So check that out if you get a moment. But I think for me as a black kid growing up in Baltimore, Maryland, having a superhero that lived down the street or lived down the hallway from me, was certainly empowering. And I think as I got older, I started to gravitate towards lacrosse. When I was younger, I was more into basketball and soccer. And it wasn't until I really got to high school and started understanding my family history that I started gravitating towards sport. And it kind of took off from there.
Wow, that is something. That is something.
Kyle, Casey O'Neill here. I'm actually the head coach down at Gonzaga High School, just down the road from Baltimore. And first
Really
of all,
cool.
Thank you for being here. We are extremely, extremely honored and excited to just spend this time with you. You just mentioned something that's very important to me and very important to Coach Turner as well, who is our basketball coach at Gonzaga, and is the two sports, is the multiple sports. You played soccer, you played basketball. Every top player that I've coached and gone on to play Division I, Division III lacrosse has been a multiple sport athlete. And I just want you to kind of touch on that to our listeners, especially people that are new to the game, how important it is, especially at a young age, to try different sports and what you found with soccer and basketball that kind of led to, some of the things you did on the lacrosse field.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I am a big advocate for playing as many sports as possible. I think for me, my success on the lacrosse field, traces directly back to my basketball and soccer career. I think if I were one of those kids that quit all the other sports in middle school and then just became a full-time lacrosse guy, I would have either been burnt out by college, or my all the different athletic things that you develop playing other sports wouldn't have happened because I would have been so laser focused on lacrosse. So I especially early in my career, when I say early, I mean late high school and certainly all throughout college, I think my dodging was different than people were used to covering because it was just, I was playing basketball on turf, right? And so I think a lot of the ways I was moving, folks weren't used to seeing it, and I had some success because of that. So I am a big advocate. I tell from my nephew to any kids I get to work with, play as many sports as you possibly can because you're developing all kinds of things, whether that's your peripheral vision, whether that's your endurance, whether that's getting tougher, whatever it is, you're developing while playing other sports. And again, I'm a big advocate of it because I am an example of someone that until my freshman year of college, lacrosse was the sport I played the least.
Interesting. That's a great answer, though. I appreciate that.
Kyle, Steve Turner here, and love your nephew, L.A. It's one of my guys who comes down to both mine and Casey's camps down at Gonzaga.
That's right.
And
love it.
I've got a son who's in the sport, young black male, And I immediately, once he started playing the sport, I started following your path. So I'd like you to talk to our listeners a little bit about how you've built your brand and allowed yourself to make a good living off this game, which doesn't have the same visibility as basketball or football.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Look, I am fully aware that my situation coming out of college put me in a situation and gave me the opportunity to earn a living in this sport. So I came out, we were undefeated, we were national champions. I won Player of the Year, I won the Tewaaraton, and I am a black player in a predominantly white sport. So from a marketing and sponsorship perspective, I heard from a lot of people because there weren't many folks that looked like me coming out at the time. So the deal I signed with STX, which has been my longest partner, I've been with them for 16 years now, put me in a position that I became a full-time lacrosse player and allowed me to build a brand, allowed me, whether that was through a camp, clinic, and appearance perspective. And then that was at the beginning. And then you fast forward to, year 16. And now a lot of these partners I have ownership in the business, or I've invested in the business, or whatever it is. And so lacrosse really has become my life. And I've been fortunate that I've been able to earn a living. But like I said earlier, I think for me, I'm very cognizant of the fact that when I came out, in 2005, I was a black player in a white sport that was taking off. And so the opportunities I had from a sponsorship perspective were pretty appealing.
So you spoke about that 15, 16 years in, and you've played professionally, you've experienced lacrosse at the highest level. How has the game evolved in terms of popularity and where it is now versus when your senior season you walked off the field as an NCAA champ? How has that changed?
Yeah, well, no, I think it depends on the topic or the level we're talking about change. I think when you look at me when I was younger, I wasn't considering playing professional lacrosse. It just wasn't. It's probably part of the reason why I didn't play it as much. I was so focused on basketball and soccer just because there was nothing aspirational about pro lacrosse when I was a kid. And I think, there was Team Toyota, there were the club leagues in the Tavern, not Washington Tavern, all that, but there wasn't a pro league to look at when I was a kid. And so I think as I got older, and got to college, I was still learning. I remember one of my favorite dumb stories from my career is I remember my sophomore year, Adam Doniger, who was the senior captain, first team All-American on our team, came out and gave me a big hug when we were headed out to our quarterfinal last practice before the quarterfinals and said, congratulations on, being a Tewaaraton finalist. And I literally had no idea what he was talking about. It's just I didn't know, and it was just ignorance on my part. But I think as I got older and then obviously graduated and had an opportunity to play in the MLL, what I've watched change is that pro lacrosse has become aspirational. And I think, a great example of that is there's a kid, Grant Ament, who just played in the PLL this summer, a rookie, and he showed his, I want to say it was middle school yearbook or maybe even lower school yearbook, but it just said be a pro lacrosse player. And then now he's actually doing it, right? And so I think if you rewind 20 years ago, we weren't saying that. There weren't young kids in lower school saying that they wanted to graduate, they wanted to play Division I, and then they wanted to be a pro. And now we have elite level guys that this has been their goal for the last 15 years of their life. So I've gotten to watch it change. It's been incredible from a sponsorship perspective. There are more organizations, more companies getting involved. Obviously from a visibility and coverage perspective and distribution perspective, what we're doing at the PLL, we're trying to make sure as many eyeballs get on the sport as possible and create net new fans. But it's been wild, man. I've gotten to watch it go from something guys do on the weekend to something guys do full time.
Incredible. Wow.
Kyle, it's Casey again. And speaking of the sport and what you guys have built, to have Sunday's championship on NBC, not NBC Sports Network, but actual NBC, 12:30 on a Sunday. Just want to get a couple things with this question. Want to get your thoughts on that final. I want to get your thoughts on how cool it was to see somebody like Zed Williams, who, comes from the Seneca Nation, to be holding that stick as he receives the trophy of the MVP, because, that opens the doors or the eyes to a lot of people seeing, the Native Americans in this sport. And then lastly, this is a loaded question here. How do the Redwoods get there next year? What do you guys need to do?
Yeah. Well, you're gonna have to remind me. You hit me with
All
a
right,
bunch
no,
there.
I know that's a lot. But come on, hey, we only get you, so often here, so we got to ask as many as we can.
No, I'm with you. So, look, as I said earlier, like the goal here is to create new lacrosse fans, right? I think we can all agree that once people see this sport played at the highest level, they typically fall in love with it. It's just a matter of getting people to see it, right? So having the opportunity to be on NBC Maine at 12:30 on a Sunday was a big deal. And we feel confident as the numbers come back that that'll be positive, but equally as important, we feel positive that we create a lot of net new lacrosse fans, and moving forward, that's going to be important for lacrosse at every level. Second part of your question was around
Zed. Sorry, it's just seeing Zed and
no,
just
Zed,
seeing that
Zed.
exposure.
Yeah, no. Look, Zed is, and you've seen it all over social media. This is no exaggeration. I know people kind of throw it out there a lot when talking about a good dude. Zed is literally the nicest human being I have ever met. He is just so humble and appreciative. He goes from this just friendly dude to the guy that we watched put up 6 yesterday.
Right.
When the team needed him. And I think what I loved about Zed and just the whole story is, to your point, him standing up there holding his stick as he accepts the trophy. And then, I don't know if you saw social today, but Lyle Thompson chimed in just talking about the importance of the stick and why Zed was holding that. And just everything about him is what this sport's all about. And so I think for the game, obviously I would have loved to be playing in that game and win that game yesterday. But seeing Zed Williams do what he did was incredible, and I think a really big moment for our sport.
Got it.
And then I think your last question was around the Woods. Look, our team, we fight, and that's just like that is the makeup of our group. That's the makeup of our coaching. And I think when you look at how we got back in that game, there's no difference from the championship game last year. I want to say we went down 9-2 in the championship last game, claw back, take that thing to overtime. And then you look at this, and I want to say we were down 8-2, and we claw back and we take it to overtime. So I think for us, it's just about starting out faster and making sure we don't have to fight back into the game and expend all this energy just to get back there and have a chance in the end. But with that said, you look at how we ended that game. We had the last possession of regulation. We didn't finish, and then we had 2 possessions in overtime. So we had our opportunities. We just didn't finish. But we love our group. We're excited and ready to run it back in 2021.
Let's go. Let's go.
Kyle,
you know it.
Kyle, it's Steve here again. And we want to have a little fun right now. We talked to Tom Schreiber earlier and asked him the same question.
Gosh.
So you know this in your game, especially over here in the East Coast. There's always a debate of which area is the real hotbed. Myself and the fans out here would like to know from you, is it Baltimore or Long Island?
Look, man, I'm from Baltimore, so you will never hear me say it's from Long Island.
I love it. I love it.
Like even if it was, it won't come out of my mouth. So
exactly.
I'm Baltimore through and through, man.
Exactly.
Well, thank you,
Kyle. Last question here. The NBC Universal thing is huge. The Tewaaraton Award is huge. Your undefeated season was huge. But in this studio right now, you've got a guy in me who did not know much about the sport before I did this podcast. And Coach O'Neill has made it a point to say, hey, we're going to touch all sports, but lacrosse is important to him. You've got 2 kids, my kids, who look like you in this studio who are getting their education right now in lacrosse. So the only thing I want to say is thank you for being one of those trailblazers who kids like my kids can see you and they can see other faces in the sport that are popularizing the sport, who are getting NBC Universal there, who are moving across leagues and who are playing at a very high level. I hope you understand that while it's a burden, I'm sure it's a cape you don't mind wearing because there are kids looking at you saying, I want to be that guy one day. What does that feel like for you?
Look,
and if you could speak to my kids, they're listening right now.
Yeah, no, it's that part of this never gets old. I don't think it ever will. I'm humbled, appreciative, and it honestly kind of catches me off guard every time I hear it, which is why I'm stuttering over my words right now. But I think, it took me a while to get here because I did have a father that played. So in my head, every time I walked by my dad's office at our house, there was this massive life-size picture of him in a Morgan jersey running around with an 18 on it. And so I felt empowered. I felt strong. The guy I wanted to be lived, 2 doors away from me. So I think now that I'm in this position that kids can look and see someone that looks like them and dream big and chase this thing, like it's I don't want to call it a dream come true, because this is far beyond anything I could have ever dreamed of. And so if I do my job and Miles Jones does his job and Trevor Baptiste, Lamar Dennis and Javon Miller and Jules Hennenberg and the list goes on of guys, if we do our job, the next generation of my nephew and your kids that are there right now, they'll be the next group people look at. And I think representation is so important. And again, it took me getting old to realize it, but like, I never questioned place in the sport because my dad was there. And so I know that as I've traveled and gotten to meet kids, whether that's in underserved areas or that's kids from areas just like the one I'm from, that have felt alone and felt like maybe they didn't want to play this sport because they were one of one on a team or one of two on a team. Like, it's our job. It's my duty to make sure that no kid feels like that. And there is no burden to it. It's part of it. And I'm fortunate to be in a position that I can have any sort of impact. So I don't view it as a burden. I don't view it as a weight. I enjoy every minute of it because I know it doesn't last forever.
Well, my daughter has Serena on her wall. They know who LeBron James is. They know who Luka Doncic is, and now they know who Kyle Harrison is. And now that's someone else they can look up to. Kyle, I thank you for joining us today. Believe me, we have been abuzz since finding out that you would join us today. So I know you've inspired a generation of future lacrosse players. We are thankful to have you share some of your time with us. Kyle, please tell our listeners how they can connect with the PLL, the sport itself, and feel free to share your social platforms with our listeners.
Yeah, well, for starters, thank you all for having me. If you ever want me to come back, let me know. I'm very easy to get a hold of. And then as far as tracking me, if anyone is interested in paying attention to the craziness going on in my life,
absolutely, yeah.
I'm on the same one. I'm the same on every social platform. It's just Kyle Harrison 18, whether that's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is. All Kyle Harrison 18. And then for Premier Lacrosse League, it's at Premier Lacrosse on Twitter. Is where we post the majority of our things, and obviously on Instagram we are at PLL.
And they can catch the sport on NBC. Kyle, we thank you a ton.
Oh, yeah.
We thank you a ton for being here. This was real important to both of our coaches, and now I see why it was so important. Gentlemen, you got anything left for Mr. Harrison?
Kyle, we just want to say thank you, man. We really appreciate you taking some of your time away from family and friends to spend the day with us or spend a few minutes here with us. And thank you for all the answers, and we're going to continue to follow you, rooting for you.
Absolutely, Kyle. Coach O'Neill here again. Just the way our sport is, it's there's a brotherhood to it, and it's a journey watching this sport grow and grow. You're a hero to many. Been following your game for a long time, and just keep doing your thing, and let's go Redwoods.
I appreciate you guys. You bought me some time for my kids. Right when I came upstairs, my son just started throwing a tantrum, so you got me out of that.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Kyle Harrison of the PLL. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
All right, be good.
Fellas, what do you think? We just had Kyle Harrison on the show.
Unbelievable. Like, I've become such a fan of this sport, and he's definitely one of the guys that I follow pretty hard, and to be able to have an opportunity to speak to him about various things involving the sport, it's a real moment for me, to be honest with you.
For you? I didn't know much about the sport before we started the podcast. O'Neill, you have talked so much about the sport, the impact of different players, how it's the fastest growing sport in America. And just talking to that guy, I know what he feels is his responsibility to the sport, to the culture of the sport, and to be one of only a few black kids, if not the only one coming up playing the sport. You felt all of that in that interview.
Absolutely. Kyle is an incredible ambassador to our game, as he mentioned multiple times about being, a black player and somebody that young black lacrosse players can look up to in a sport that is growing, and somebody of his level that just does and plays and works and acts through the game the right way. What an incredible interview. What an incredible guy.
15 years, and he doesn't sound like he's ready to be done.
You should see his training regimen. You know, you watch those guys and follow them on Instagram and Twitter. I mean, they get after it. And that was a tough – what they just did is incredible in that 2-week tournament. And to be quarantined there 2 weeks prior, 20 games, you know, incredible.
He's a baller too now. Don't sleep on him on the basketball court. I've seen some video highlights of him. He can play it.
But I love that. I love asking that question because it's no mystery that the top players, you look at their bios, you read about them on Wikipedia, you go to their, biographies, they all played different sports.
Yes.
Growing up.
I just hope the kids who are listening out here hear that. It's important to be able to play 2 sports, even 3 for some of the guys who've been able to do it. I think the cross training has always been what I've looked at with it. I mean, Casey, we've shared some guys who've played both sports at our school, and you see what it's done for them. So I always try to tell parents, let your kid keep playing a couple sports. Don't get so locked into one. You never know. I mean, you heard Kyle today. It was probably going to be basketball, soccer, and now he's made a living off of lacrosse.
And that's a perfect point. You never know, because if that door opens, all of a sudden you got to go through it. And he lived it with soccer and basketball. All of a sudden he's playing a little bit of lacrosse, and boom, he's at Johns Hopkins. Johns Hopkins is the mecca of lacrosse back then, and to win, looking to go undefeated in 2005 was. It's hard to do.
To not know that Tewaaraton award, when he was playing it.
Right. And to win that, I mean, and to be the first black player to win that. I mean, how cool is that?
Right.
It's the Heisman of lacrosse.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Kyle Harrison, 18, on all social platforms. We are so proud to have had him on the show, and we hope you enjoyed it too. We'll be back right after this break. Listen to Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill on your favorite podcast platform. We can now be heard on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podchaser, Deezer, Listen Notes, Podcast Addict, Buzzsprout, and of course on Apple Podcasts. Be sure to listen, subscribe, and spread the word. Questions for the Coaches is brought to you by
Peace Players International. At Peace Players, we use the power of sport to unite, educate, and inspire young people to create a more peaceful world. Find out more at www.peaceplayers.org.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have questions from the callers this week. We have 3 questions. They're kind of in a few different sports, but from Jay Jones, the former manager for both Coach Turner and Coach O'Neill, he asks, I've had the pleasure of working with both of you as a manager during my time at Gonzaga, and as I remember, there was a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that a lot of people do not see. Can either of you, I imagine both of you can, talk to the importance of having managers within your programs or on different levels of sports? Coach Turner.
Well, Double J, probably one of the best to ever do it.
All right.
And I rewarded him for that. He's the only manager to ever play in a game for me as the head coach.
Never forget that night.
So he was something, huh?
He was something. He was special. Matter of fact, the news Channel 4 did a special feature on him because of us having him play in the game.
Excellent.
But the importance, and I think the thing I've been blessed with managers is that they figure it out. Like the ones who really get it done don't wait to ask questions. They just go do it. And John was one of those guys. And we've had some other ones. And I'll tell you, they're the ones who've had a lot of success after college for me. We got Danny O'Brien, who managed when I was an assistant coach for Coach Myers. He's currently an associate AD at VCU.
Wow.
Mike Williams, who was one of my managers, now sitting on the bench with the Washington Wizards. So sport can get you to a lot of places, but I know I'm kind of skipping a little bit over the question itself, but it goes back to something we talked about before, being able to be a part of a team, and when you allow those who are part of your team to have success and be a part of it, great things end up happening for them. And all these guys that we've had on I Street be managers have gone on to do some unbelievable things, and they're just as important as the players, as the coaches, as our trainers. They're a big part of our team.
Coach O'Neill, talk to the importance of that, please.
Absolutely. When young men come in and actually ask, it's become very popular to come and manage for the lacrosse program because I think we've built a good culture that those guys want to be around every day. A few of your former basketball players, Anwar Gill was one of our managers recently. Jay Jones. I think of Miles Washington. I think of just so many different young men. But when they come in, they know they're going to be held accountable, just like the players. You're not late for practice. You're not late for team meetings. You are not there just to fill up water and or grab something for the trainers or this and that. I mean, you're part of the team, right?
Right.
You're essentially an assistant coach.
No
and
doubt.
so they have to deal with, working with the trainers in the training room and then working with the players on the bus rides, on the trips. Look, we win a big game in overtime. Those guys are running out with the team and jumping like it's.
Oh, that's awesome.
We can't do it without our managers.
And the humbling,
not even close.
Well, the humbling part of it, these are a lot of times guys who tried out for these teams, and to be able to say, you know what, I still want to be a part of that team, even if I'm not even able to play on the field, to play on the court, like that's big because this, and kids kind of joke each other and mess with each other, but I can tell you, our guys love our managers. They treat them just like they're one of the players on the team. When we travel, they travel. When they get the gear, when our players get the gear, they get the gear.
They get the gear,
and we can't do our jobs without them.
And that is awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, from our friend Sean Parker, the voice of the Minnesota Timberwolves, he asks, at this point, should college football just shut it down for 2020?
Oh boy, I don't want to be the one that's on record for making a comment either way on this one. Look, we've talked about leadership in one of our episodes. Obviously, we've heard things about the Big Ten and the ACC and the SEC and the presidents are voting, and then the ADs are meeting. And again, I mean, we're dealing with in our own community here with sports here. I don't have the answer to that, Sean. If they can quarantine somewhere, because we've seen it with lacrosse, we've seen it with hockey, we've seen it with basketball. Do you bring the conferences into one area? I mean, I don't know how they do it, to be honest.
It's got to be tough, yeah.
Prayer. I don't mean to joke about it.
When in doubt.
But prayer. I mean, I just don't know how any of the sports are going to happen unless you're in a situation like the NBA or hockey right now. PLL, where you can put yourself into a bubble.
With no fans.
With no fans and be in a place where, and I can't forget the WNBA as well, but be in a place where everyone's safe and everyone's sound, and you have protocol to be able to test regularly. I don't know that you can cross borders right now, and that's what you have to do playing in college football to be able to have kids be safe and know that you can keep a league going.
It's that travel piece.
That's definitely a big piece to it.
Yeah, you throw in that travel, it makes it real difficult to quarantine and to know everything about everyone and where everyone's going and whether they bring him back to campus or what have you.
I don't know that you shut it down. Maybe it's what we're seeing with high school right now, where they're pushing everything to the second semester.
Okay,
but that's difficult. I think that's too difficult to do.
It's potential. It is, but you start talking about all the other things that get involved, and the elephant in the room is the money.
Yeah.
Are they going to allow that to just keep not be there? I know that the NCAA wants their dollars and these universities wants their dollars. So does somebody get bumped for it? I hope not, because I don't want to see anyone lose their sport for their opportunities to be able to play. But I think you try to find a way to make it work if you can. But right now, until we get a vaccine, I don't see it working unless you can be in a bubble.
Our last question, for some reason I did not get who wrote this one in, but was the Washington football team right in releasing Darius Geis?
Well, look, they've had some issues recently come out in the public about in their own organization. I do think they were right. People are going to point to a few other members of that team who've had sort of the same issues that Darius Geis had. But let's not forget, Ron Rivera, when he began in Carolina, had some issues to deal with. We're going back to Ray Kruth and some issues back there.
Yep.
I think this is a guy, and I don't want to bring down the conversation here, but Ron Rivera's he's a no holds barred guy. I mean, I don't think he's going to put up with it. And look, if he's wrong, he's wrong. It's on him, and if he's right, he's right. But I think they had to do something.
There's no doubt that they had to do something, and they did it. And,
Good.
And I fully support it. They are a team that I support, and like Casey said, the organization has had some bad print.
Yeah.
In the last couple months, and this can't happen. And I know he's innocent until proven guilty, but when you start talking about domestic violence, something has to happen.
You gotta go.
No tolerance, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for those questions from the call. I say the callers, but they write in questions from our listeners. If you want to be a part of that, just email us, TurnerO'NeillPodcast@gmail.com. We will do our best to get your questions in.
If you have a question for the fellas, submit your question or show idea right on our website. Go to www.turnerandoneil.com and click Submit Your Idea.
Be sure to connect with us socially on Instagram and Facebook at Turner O'Neill Podcast, on Twitter at Turn On Podcast, and on YouTube, search Turner and O'Neill and then subscribe.
Building your brand is an important part of your business growth. By partnering with Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill, you'll gain the exposure and brand recognition behind our podcast. With thousands of listeners, subscribers, and website visitors, your company will benefit from our popularity online and during the podcast. Our partners also benefit from our exposure on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Buzzsprout, and Apple Podcasts. Inquire today and let's partner to build your brand. The Tewaaraton team. Ready, set, sold. With over $1 billion in real estate sales since 2005, our agents bring experience and emotional intelligence to home buying. Visit www.tamara4homes, that's the number 4.com, or call 301-780-4663.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our show. We hope you enjoyed our guests that we had. We had Tom Schreiber, Kyle Harrison. Lacrosse was the topic, and I think, guys, we're kind of overwhelmed, blown away. Those were some great conversations, huh?
Absolutely. Again, just to go back to those two guests, just two icons in the sport. Been smiling the whole show.
For two very different reasons. I mean, the one common reason is because of their excellent play in college and across professional leagues.
Yeah.
But they're sort of, one guy is like the trailblazer for the league.
Exactly.
And one guy is a bright new face or a younger face that is sort of like the face of the league. Arguably, you said the best midfielder out there. So we had some different angles, but really, I think what both of those guys would want is more exposure for the sport. They want folks who don't know about it to know about it.
Yeah.
And I think with NBC in their corner, well, they're going in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Definitely the leadership of the Rabels and for the PLL and guys like Tom and Kyle are only going to let that league just grow and grow and grow. And it's a sport that is probably the fastest growing sport that I've ever watched in my lifetime. I only see great things happening for it, and it's just been a blessing to have both of those guys on our podcast today.
Well, thanks for both of you for making that happen, for bringing some awareness on this podcast to the game of lacrosse. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to be a friend or partner in the program. You can go on our website and click partnerships for that. Don't forget to follow, like, add, and subscribe to us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We encourage your questions and submissions. If you got something to say, we want to know about it. If you have a critique for the show, if you have a pat on the back for the show, if you have a show idea, we want to know about it. Not all submissions or questions will be used. Each week, we will read questions on the podcast, but certainly send us your comments, critiques, and thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Cole. Cole is in the studio tonight.
Yes,
he's heading off to college. You're going to Clemson, right? He's heading off to college this week. So part of the podcast, he's going to travel. He's going to spread the word about the podcast. And look, Dad doesn't want to see a bunch of credit card bills with a bunch of takeout pizza on it. So, look, open your own account and you spend all the money you want.
But, yeah, there we go.
All right, there you go. We want to thank Coach O'Neill, Coach Turner, DJ Chrissy, our engineer, as always, and Paula. She does a lot of behind-the-scenes work. O'Neill, what do you have to say to close this thing out?
We're blessed, guys. We really are. I just feel blessed tonight, and just to see where we're going, and I just feel blessed. That's it.
Coach Turner, I want to hear your final thoughts, and we need a quote from you this week, sir.
Well, before the quote, I'm like Casey, man. I'm blessed. This it started from a couple little conversations, an email years ago. Years ago.
Yeah.
A phone call on the way home from the beach, and here we are. I'm just excited for where this can go. I'm excited that we have a platform where we can share with folks, bring people to the table that anyone can relate to. Family, friends, kids, coaches, teachers, educators. We're going to keep this thing rolling. I'm excited, for where we're going to take it to.
I've got two things. Number one, there was no bromance tonight. That's number one. You're trying to act right because Cole is here. I know. And number two,
There's a little bit.
I did not get called the hardest working somebody. And can I get that at least? Can I at least get that?
We're blessed because we have the hardest working producer in Kurtis, an engineer in DJ Chrissy.
Cannot forget about DJ Chrissy.
All right. As long as I get that once
She's
an
going to get the
episode.
mic back soon. We're going to give the mic soon, right?
Guys, if you want to hear DJ Chrissy, she could care less whether she's on the mic, but I think she brings a little extra something to this podcast. So we'll get her back on the mic. We will get her back on the mic. There's an episode that we're going to get out there with Chrissy on the mic. Those folks will hear that. Coach Turner, it is your quote.
All right. Quote for the week. This is coming from a Bible passage. 1 Corinthians 13, 7-8. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails.
Chrissy, pull the plug.
Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill would like to thank our partners, sponsors, and donors. Our partners, the Tamara Cusick Team, Dynamic DJ Entertainment, Ray Cruz and MCF Mortgage, Healthy Baller, and Insurance Alliance Group, LLC. Our sponsors, O'Neill Development, LLC, Next Level Lacrosse, Peace Players International, and A Squared Home and Office Solutions. Our donors, Redwood Investments, Justin O'Neill, donor, and Winsight Media. Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill is produced by Kurtis Cross and engineered by DJ Chrissy. All material is the exclusive property of the podcast and may not be copied, rebroadcast, or used in any way without the written consent of the podcast. The views, ideas, and commentary of podcast guests are solely their own and not necessarily endorsed by the podcast. You may submit questions, podcast ideas, and commentary to turnero'neillpodcast@gmail.com. No compensation is offered for submitted material. Should we choose to use your idea, comment, or question, you agree to your likeness, social media identity, and/or information being used on the podcast. Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill is recorded weekly and distributed via Google Podcast, Spotify, Buzzsprout, Apple Podcast, and other popular podcast platforms. Be sure to search and subscribe. Join us socially on Facebook and Instagram at Turner O'Neill Podcast. On Twitter at Turn On Podcast, and on YouTube, search Turner and O'Neill and subscribe. Our website is www.turnerando'neill.com. Partnership opportunities are available.